big part of healing. And national healing is one of the conversations I think we should have. But I just want to make sure that we've got, I think he's joining us on the line, is Dr. Maneti. Are you with us now?
Yes, I am here.
I'm so glad.
Once again, good morning, and
Thank
good morning to your listenership. Good morning, Prof, as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Maneti. I saw that we lost your picture. So we've been having our conversation here about the whole issue, about bringing closure to a lot of devastating stories here in South Africa, but bringing the mortal remains of former liberation heroes and heroines who passed away. This is Zimbabwe and Zambia. We spoke about how long, firstly, it has taken and the importance it is to a nation to have closure on this issue. I mean, not to mention the family and colleagues of those to finally be laid to rest in their birthplace. Perhaps you want to weigh in on this conversation. How important is it for the nation?
Yes, definitely. This is a very important mission indeed. And what has happened is that South Africa has been very, very cautious on how to approach this monumental initiative. At first, what used to happen is that individuals, families would actually approach countries where their loved ones are actually buried and actually make arrangements for the return and repatriation of their mortal remains of their loved ones. But South African government, under the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, Military Veterans, Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, the South African Heritage Resources Agency, and ourselves, the National Heritage Council Provincial Department, we took a very inclusive approach where we signed country agreements with countries where our fallen heroes are buried. And we said, no. What we need to do is to actually really identify those graves of our fallen heroes and include basically as a collective and into the fold of this program a series of remains that were able to be identified and begin that process of actually getting those remains and returning them back home. So in total, from a very small number of about 5 to about now 47 to 50 plus remains have been identified and will be returned to South Africa for repatriation, for reburial, and also to be handed over to their loved ones as well. So this is a very important initiative in a sense that it involved the broader society, members of society, families of loved ones who were part of this initiative from the outset. I must say also that, Leanne, in terms of closure, really here, this is just the first phase, basically, of finding closure, because with this collection or collective, repatriation of about 50 plus, mortal remains of our fallen heroes returned, at least we were able to say to the families and loved ones, here are your fallen, loved ones, and are now being returned to you. And we think basically with this important initiative, they'll be able to find closure, and that will trigger also the process of them also healing out of this important initiative. Healing is basically a process, is not an event in itself, but we are saying that as the South African government, let's take elementary steps and start with the first phases of, engaging, the countries, begin the process of repatriation, and also try and do it in a dignified manner, involving all the cultural and traditional, facets, of handling and dealing with the mortal remains of our fallen ones. So we are very happy that this actually marks the first phase, really, of a broader, program, of retaining remains of our loved ones in foreign countries.
Yeah, it does indeed speak to a lot, and we're glad that this process is happening. And I do we know to date how many bodies are still outside the borders of our country that need to be repatriated. Is there a number? I know that there is a significant amount of numbers that have come back to the country and had their rightful burials here. But in terms of those that we're still fighting to get that back, do you have any idea, Doctor?
Yeah, it's quite, the interesting part about the journey of identifying graves, in foreign countries, in Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, even beyond the continent as well, it's sort of like a moving target. In a year you'll be able to identify a few graves, but again, these are graves that are not marked, they're not demarcated. And it requires a very meticulous process of bringing experts, especially, from the, missing persons task team that we have, and also the NPA to play a very important role of going to identify, testing, doing the DNA testing and so on. So it's quite an involved and an extensive process. So at this point, we don't actually know, we can't actually have a quantification of the extent of the remains that are still out there. Because some of the people regularly died in very, very harsh and, poor, conditions, shallow graves and so on. I remember very well we once went to Tanzania about 20 years ago to go and actually identify graves of fallen heroes, and they were all scattered across Tanzania, in the forest, others basically in clearly demarcated graves and so on. So this is quite a bigger program and a bigger project which really needs us to really put our shoulder to the mantle as a collective, bring in diverse expertise, diverse cultural groupings, and to begin to engage with those countries and identify broadly, people who were exiled and also who participated in our liberation struggle. So it's hard to tell at this point in time, but I'm very happy that at least with this collection, or perhaps the ones that have been identified and will be returned to South Africa, at least we are certain, the great certainty that this is basically the quantum that we're looking at.
Professor, just quickly to bring you into the conversation, I know we're running into time constraints here, but one of the biggest criticisms as well is about the lack of process in dealing with cases identified by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for investigation and prosecution. I mean, this is a very big issue and a glaringly open wound for South Africa. As much as we want to talk about our cultural heritage and to bring closure to many things, this is one blight, one would say, that is still on our history. And when we sit here 30 years into democracy, it's an issue that still has not had closure. What are your views on this?
Yeah, I think one of the sore spots, for me, is that we got rid of the Truth and Reconciliation in a process in itself that could have helped people to get closure. We have seen that a few of those people who went through these things came out, even Adrian Flock came out at least better and reconciled himself with his community. But because we have got in South Africa this kind of a debilitating disease of continuous discontinuity, where we start with brilliant, ideas, we get rid of them. We put up good blueprints. No one, follows them. Simply because we are not actually even training our own, people in the civil service to be able to deliver, basic, things. So that's where the heritage, where we should be directing ourselves, looking at from now on.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, I have to leave it there for this morning, but certainly an important issue, and we will pick up on this again, no doubt, tomorrow, where that so-called homecoming ceremony will be taking place when the remains of many of those who died in exile, we're talking to about 49 or 50, will be arriving in South Africa and welcomed into the country. And this is all part of a big process to try and bring back. And what I'm reading here is this homecoming ceremony. This is brought about 188 people out of 477 who died in South Africa in unknown political circumstances that have been located and handed over to their families. So still a large number that need it, but 50 being brought into South Africa tomorrow.